Today's guests are nominated for an Emmy for their designs for the bear. It's a series that follows fine dining chef Carmen, also known as Carmi, who returns home to Chicago to run the family sandwich shop after a death in his family. These guests today are both nominated for their work on the bear. We have costume designer Courtney Wheeler and her lovely assistant costume designer, Lariana Santiago. Welcome to the show, ladies.
Thank you.
Is this your first nomination for something? How does it feel? That's the follow-up question. And how does it feel?
First Emmy nomination.
It's our first Emmy nomination. And when I was an assistant costume designer, I was nominated with Christina Spiridakis for Dash and Lily for a daytime Emmy.
Nice. That's awesome. So was that call pretty exciting? Tell me about that.
Yeah, so we're on a job right now together. So it was pretty special that we just happened to be in the same room when it happened. I forgot that it was the day. And I got a FaceTime from my partner in the middle of the day. So I thought it was some sort of emergency because he never FaceTimed me. And I answered and he said to us, "How does it feel to be Emmy nominated?" And that's how we found out in a store.
We basically screamed, I was on the other side of the video and I can hear him talking and I'm and because I wanted to block, I kind of knew that it was happening in the morning, but I put it out in my mind. We had to go shopping, diligent. I didn't want to make her nervous. And then when she called, just streets in the store. It was just us in this vintage store. This woman was just looking at us what's going on? We start crying. It was this whole thing, but yeah.
Yeah, the shop owner who we've never met because we're in a new city. It wasn't even a contact. It was a complete stranger, and we're just on the floor crying.
Well, that's kind of special for them too. They're they just got news of their nomination in my shop. Did they pull out their phone and start recording?
Oh no, thankfully
not.
Okay. She did ask later when we saw her, she said, "Have you guys come down off of how does it feel now?" And I was still surreal, but much calmer.
Yeah. The bear it's so interesting that this is a show I will hear from no matter little pockets of wherever I am. I'll hear people go, "Have you seen the bear?" And you don't hear that too often, that it's not every single series that can say, "Oh, it's just kind of like a buzz, everybody's talking about it." But I would say that this is one that definitely fits that. Would you agree? Do you kind of hear people talking about it and you're like, "I'm the costume designer," and
Oh, it happens all the time. I have been in stores either shopping for that job or another job, and I'll hear customers come in and be like, "Oh, we found you because the clothes on the bear come from here." And I've been in line waiting to check out, and a customer asks, "Do you have the white t-shirt from the bear?" And I don't even say. I'm just
you don't.
She goes the Simpson meme into the bushes.
Right. The Homer just backing up slowly.
Yeah, all that where people you'll hear little discussions about it, at a restaurant. I'll be eating at the bar at a restaurant and I'll overhear someone, or shopping, we'll hear them talking about the show, and we're just
oh yeah, I've been at a restaurant where the staff was doing the bear day and they all had gotten the blue aprons and they just kept saying, "Yes, chef," after every. I mean, it was dive bar. It wasn't even, it was clearly they were, role playing the bear because they would have never dressed like that. But it was "Yes, chef," after everything. And I was "Oh my God."
Oh my goodness. That's hilarious. You know what's funny? You say that. Yesterday, we allow our students, even though we're professors, we allow our students to call us by our first name because we're so close knit in the theater department. So a lot of them are freshmen, obviously, for incoming. And they were like, "What do we call you?" And I was like, "You can just call me Catherine." And then one person goes, "Can we call you chef?"
Oh my God.
It's infiltrating social
everything.
Norms. Yeah. It's really becomes so cultural almost. It's crazy.
Yeah, that's really funny. And of course I said, "Yes, you can."
You may.
You may. So I like going back and hearing how you got started or how you grew up, first of all, even going back to before you got started, because as a kid, those are such formative years. So one of you or both of you, please share with us what your parents or guardians did for a living, and then what were you like as a kid?
My father was the director of radiology at Downstate Medical in Brooklyn. And my mom was a special education teacher in high school in Yonkers, New York. And well, like as a kid, loved reading, loved magazines, especially like fashion magazines. I would go to Barnes and Noble with my mom, who's also a reader as well. And I would get like 2 books and a magazine, or 2 magazines a book. But it had to be in that order. I had to have looked through the glossy pages, looked through the clothes, would make collages, always was drawing little fashion girls and croquis. I didn't know it's called croquis at the time. I guess I was always into clothes and fashion. I didn't know what that meant. I think at the time I just would say I want to live in New York and wear all black and make clothes, design clothes. But yeah, it wasn't until really cool. High school where I started doing theater, and I entered with Tommy Hilfiger when I was 16, and then I started kind of gaining more of a direction.
Wow. That's pretty, like what made you want to do that? So you interviewed with the company?
I ran into Tommy Hilfiger at my local mall.
Oh my God. Okay, I'm so glad I asked more questions because this sounds like a fascinating story.
He was in a hip hop streetwear store, and they're like, "Where's Tommy Hilfiger?" I was like, "That is Tommy Hilfiger." And I just went up to him and was like, "Hi, I'm into fashion. I'm a big fan." I just wanted to introduce myself. And he's like, "Oh," he started talking, asked if I watched his daughter's show because that was on MTV at the time. And he's like, "Well, you should intern with the company." I was like, "Oh, I'm only 16. He's like, "That doesn't matter here." And he gives me his card. He's like, "Call my assistant and let her know that you ran into me and that you want to join the internship program." And then that summer I interned. So cool. And he remembered me and my friends. When my friends ran into him at the mall, he asked how my intern was going. I ran into him again. Yeah, so it was a great kicking off point, I think, for being like, okay, I am on this track.
Yeah. Wow. What kind of things did you do as the intern for that? Like, kind of describe.
Oh man, I remember it was a lot of taking care, like organizing swatches and the Pantones and coming up. They're like, "Oh, you can come up with color names." And I was so shy. I was like, "I can come up with color names." And I remember just sitting in on their meetings, and they're like, "Oh, do you want to do things like help design pockets for," and like little tasks. They're like, "Oh, maybe it'll be cool. Maybe you'll design like a little pocket for us." Or I remember going to a lot of their business, like convention fairs and all that. And yeah, it was actually a pretty good experience. And learn the process of what it takes to get something from the image to design, the drawing to production.
Wow. You know, as a kid and even as an adult, I'd look at crayons and I'm like, man, this sounds like such a cool job to name the color of the crayon. And you got to do it with Pantone.
Listen, Lord knows if they used it. I was just like, okay, here's the thing. I was so like, oh my gosh. Yeah.
That is so cool. So, Lariana, what about you?
Well, I was raised by my grandparents because my mom had me pretty young, and I basically grew around professors and school teachers. So I feel like I had a lot of structure in my childhood where everything was almost very militant and by the book. So I feel like I kind of cosplayed that as a kid, and I would steal teacher supplies from the break room and their little planning area. And I would make all the kids be students on weekends, and I'd be the teacher and nobody else could be the teacher. And I don't know, I feel like it made me really bossy. I would coordinate like neighborhood fashion shows, and I would go into everybody's closets and tell them what they were modeling. And I would cue everybody and push them out the sliding door and make all the parents come. I choreographed all the little dances and dressed them. So I was a very busy kid. This really adds.
That is awesome. That kind of fit, Courtney? with
Yeah, 100, like 100%. I'm like, yes, you definitely played school.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I had to be the
You
teacher.
definitely were coordinating fashion shows, 100%.
That's
That's how I
awesome.
spent my weekends and summers.
That is so cool. So, how did the two of you meet?
We met on The Bear. We actually, so for the pilot, Christina Spiridakis was the designer and I was her assistant costume designer. We did the pilot, let's say we shot it in between July and June. Yeah, 2022. And we went to Louisiana to shoot Queer as Folk reboot. And then while we were there, we're like, okay, I mean, we shot in the middle of summer. There's no way they're shooting in the dead of winter. We'll be fine schedule wise. No. We get a phone call and they're like, yeah, so we got picked up. We're going to start in February. And I'm like, oh, okay. So it overlapped with Queer as Folk. And we were interviewing people at the time. We interviewed Lariana, did a guerrilla FaceTime meeting with her. She had no clue. We're like, yeah, we'll just FaceTime you. We were like,
No
just
warning.
very, very like chill. We had her, it was after work. We're both like, she's in this wonderful like moo like this fantastic background behind her.
Because it was it was like evening. We were on different coasts. I feel like no one said it was going to be a FaceTime. So I'm in my like loungewear. We're lounging.
Right.
Me and Christina might have had a glass of wine in our hand and we're like, oh, we just wanted to talk to you to get to know you and your shop, how you shop. And we explained our approach to costume design and it was really similar. And so Lariana had first come on as our shopper or buyer, depending on your coast region. And when I ended up coming ahead of Christina, and Christina was like, you can do this, you have this, I can't come, I'll join you. And then like a couple days before I was supposed to leave, she goes, I probably won't join you, right? And I'm like, you can't tell me that. I will freak out. And then
I feel like you didn't even so I was like hired to be like a standing ACD while she designed like Christine. She kept telling everyone that Christina was coming, but she knew deep down that she wasn't. But just to get through it, I feel like you had to keep saying she was coming just so you didn't feel
overwhelmed because it's my first major thing, costume designing, and I'm so grateful for the support that Christina has given me and continues to give me.
Yeah.
And it was such a wonderful way to start my journey. And to have Lariana as my assistant costume designer was such a blessing because she's, an amazing person, has an amazing eye. Obviously, she gets things done. She coordinates.
That's right.
She will take a task and do it. And so it's funny that you ask, when did we start working with each other and how we meet? Because within the first, we would have fittings with people and just, so how long have you guys been working together? How long have you known each other? And we're like, no, we just met like a couple weeks ago. And because we just automatically had a good creative bond and energy and flow.
So what was that, 21? What year was that?
I think it was 21 because time isn't real after the pandemic.
Right.
But we're all in a work because 2021 post-pandemic, there was rampant filming because we had taken that big time off. So it was just like there was more work than people to work jobs. And I feel like that's why everybody was just like on something and then you had to like leave something to go finish, so I think it was 2021 and then
summer. I did the pilot. Probably we did summer of 2021 to shoot in the winter of 2022.
Because we came like in January. We started.
Yeah. Well, so this series is still so young. Walk us through, what is your relationship like on set, or pre-production and production, and how do you collaborate and execute each of these looks together? Like, kind of walk us through that division of work.
I think when we first start out, obviously it's the office setup and making sure that it's conducive to our work environment and what we need to get done logistically. And then after that, I think it's most helpful when we hit the ground, we go into shops and start looking and start touching the clothes and seeing what's out there.
Yeah.
I think in the beginning to get a sense of creativity, and it helps foster that thought process as we're reading the scripts and as we're going through what we need for the characters.
Yeah, I feel like it's worth noting that The Bear, the way I've never worked on a show like it, the way we film, and I mean, it was like not block shooting. It's almost filming it like a feature film, but you have how many like whatever amount of episodes. So it's a lot of content, and you're just shooting all around. So it's like you owe so many things up front, and it's so much more logistic than design. Sometimes it's more like coordinating of manpower, making sure that you have the bodies to do the things where you need them, when you need them. And I feel like Courtney and I mean, it just always felt like we're barely above water, but we're treading, we're getting there. So it's
You're the duck.
good that we like each
still,
other.
Still on the water, and the feet are going like this underneath the water.
Oh yeah, for sure. So
which I think many a design team and the costume department can agree with is, the clothes when they get to set, the actors look great and everything
is fine.
It's fine. But behind, it takes a whole wonderful department to get to that place. And we're lucky to have that on a show like The Bear, which is, we move really fast. We get through our days really fast. And so a lot of times they're like, oh, should we shoot this? Do you guys have this ready? And we're like that? Okay.
Like, or it wasn't, on the schedule for that day, but then you're, pulling from other places, just a lot of managing of like, if this, you're sending stuff to set, but set is doing their days in like 8 hours, which we can't prep that fast because we haven't even gotten the actors by the time. Like they're flying in from other places and their fittings are later in the day. And so it's fast.
Yeah.
So So going back to kind of what Lariana was saying, are you saying, do you shoot multiple episodes in a week, or is it like one episode a week?
Oh, in a day.
In a day.
So many different episodes. Yeah.
Because if we're sometimes it just works out. So then they're like, okay, we're going to shoot maybe
a location out.
We're shooting the location out, or we're shooting, not necessarily the actor out, but just
maximizing the actor while they're there.
Yeah. Or the space that they're in. But we even do it a little bit on set too. It just depends on what the setup is and what they're prepared for. Yeah. And Chris is very much like a 1-2 guy in terms of takes. So it is us being prepared to have things ready in case they're able to get further than they want. Than anticipated. Than anticipated, which is a great problem to have.
It's very efficient. I will say, it is a lot of work for us, but it's crazy how much they can get and churn out such quality TV and not burn the crew out. And it's a fabulous way of doing that. It is a lot of prep, but I like it.
Yeah. Well, how many episodes have they written at a time for you even to know to prep beforehand? Is it the whole season, or they have like 4 episodes?
We have it. We'll have it.
Okay.
Yeah, and of course we get updated drafts as they come in, but for the most part, we come in with an idea of where the season is going and what we need. And in the beginning, we tend to build out their closets anyway, and then we'll have fittings as needed if there's like special episode or a special thing arising that we didn't touch in the beginning fitting. So something like fishes,
which we're going to talk about
a little.
That would be considered specialty because you don't have all that casting up front. So you kind of have to wait until you get casting to build that world and make sure that everyone's wearing different things and that you're not overlapping and everyone is their own character.
Yeah. It's a lot of color Tetris and to see who's wearing what color, what can play off of what complements the colors, what doesn't complement the colors, what's too matchy. And it's
walls doing.
What are the walls doing? At some point, Lariana and our truck costumer printed out everyone's fittings for me, and we would have Velcro them on the back so I could move them around.
Yes.
Yeah, I got that idea from the iconic Deborah McGuire when I did my last season. Our last semester out in LA, she was a professor of mine and took us through her workspace. And I
Yeah.
saw that on the ground, she had like a bunch of boards where she had everybody, but she Velcroed them so she could move. And I like, once I started designing, I was like, this is why there's Velcro, because everything is ever changing and you have to play Tetris. And it was the best thing ever. We had
And it's
so
to
many
be able to move them based on color palette, right? That's what you're saying, like to, oh, that one's
yeah.
matchy with either the background or somebody else. So I'm going to plug that look over
Yeah.
here. Wow, that's very, I like that. Very cool. So let's talk fishes. This episode in particular is nominated. So this talk us through this episode. This is a flashback, and I love Jamie Lee Curtis in this episode in particular, and like grabbing the butter and just kind of like putting the butter on the bread with their, and I'm just picturing the butter and those long fingernails, just scraping it on the bread. It's such a manic scene, and like, you know, all these people coming in. Talk us through this episode in particular. Why do you feel this episode was nominated in particular out of any of the other episodes? Because you have beautiful character arcs that we're also going to get into in a little bit. I want you to talk about. But for now, let's talk about fishes.
I think there is an intimacy to that episode and a relatability in terms of maybe you don't see yourself exactly, but you're seeing your family dynamic, you're seeing familiarity. I think that people are connecting that experience. You're seeing Carmi and Richie and back, and you know, Oliver, uncle, like you're seeing them in this place where you haven't before, and it gives so much context to who they are, especially to take sugar. And I think it feels special, and it's so fly on the wall in a way that you're like, oh my gosh, what's going to happen next? Like Michael is there. We haven't ever met, like really got to know him. And you're seeing like how he interacts with Donna and Carmi and Sugar. And you're seeing Richie, you're seeing these people interact with like new characters too that have to also feel lived in. And I think that that's why people connect to that episode, because it feels so visceral.
Yeah. Oh, that's a great description. Lariana, do you have anything before I have a little comment on what Courtney said?
Yeah, I think it's just like an episode where you're peeling back an onion and just it's so layered and everybody's worlds collide and it connects so many dots and you're just like having a lot of moments watching it. And yeah, I think it's very relatable in one way or another to every family.
Yeah, I love what I was going to say, Courtney, is I love that the term fly on the wall for that episode in particular, because that's exactly how you feel. You're like, you're there. You almost feel like you're in this manic engagement with these family members, but they're not actually looking at you and talking at you, but you're the camera, you know? And so it definitely gives you this kind of open into the relationship, and like has this ring of truth, like both of you are saying, that I've heard that when stories have elements of like strong truth that kind of are universal truths that resonate with people, that those are the movies or the TV series or the things that really go, oh my gosh, that like meant something to me because it hit that chord of universal truth, which I think that does, which is really quite beautiful. So you use costumes as metaphors in this series, any kind of like armor to be put on, or, you know, just different kinds of layering. So do you want to talk us through any kind of use of the metaphor of costume within any of your character looks in particular that are some of your favorites, like the jackets or the aprons or anything?
I think how each of the characters express themselves through clothes, I really enjoy, and how it moves to the story, whether you're getting more of a person, like in Sydney's case, I think she already came into the kitchen from that very first episode of seeing her with the embroidered Tom Brown shirt, and you see her with her different bandanas and headscarves, and you see her trying to, without speaking, she's like asserting her voice and her point of view, because she probably has been in spaces where she couldn't speak up. And so clothing becomes a way of speaking and sharing her point of view without having to say a word. I think someone like Carmi has a uniform, and what he sees, and it's well cut, and he doesn't want to think about his clothing, even though when he buys it, before he buys it, he loves quality, he loves cut, he is into clothes and fashion that way, but he can have a jumble of clothes on the floor and it'll all match and it'll all go together, because that's how he's approaching it. So every day he can focus and dial in on his job. Someone like Richie, you see him hold on to the past and what feels good and nostalgic, to wearing clothes that make him feel actually powerful, and it makes him feel like he has a purpose, and that this is how he wants to move through the world, and it is his armor. And yeah, I think there's so many characters. I go, if you have thoughts about.
Yeah, I mean, with Cousin, I feel like first we start off, we had this idea of like, oh, like Michael used to wear these, and, he's still mourning him and wearing these t-shirts that Michael wore, as a uniform to maybe feel close to him, and seeing his character development. And, then he transitions into almost feeling like, okay, these clothes mean respect, and these clothes mean this. He takes pride in it. And that character development is one of my favorites. And I feel like it happens with Sugar too. Like first we see her, she's a banker, that's her day job, and she's, very quirky and has like thing, and like it's a little sweet, it's a little more sweeter, it's a little bit more innocent almost. Like, I don't know. And then she transitions into the management or the role, and is now wearing very, empowering clothes too.
Yeah, and her colors change slightly. Like, we still have sugar colors, we call them, like, oh, that's a sugar look, but I think they happen to be deeper this time, where I feel like in the beginning it was a little bit more sweet feeling or young feeling. And I think as she found her place, and I think that's a lot of what the show is finding your place. And I think that your clothes, whether you realize it or not, change with that.
Yeah, that's so good. There's you guys breaking it down so beautifully like that, and how it's subtle, but there's specific decisions. Makes me think of, and this is my own personal opinion, but I wonder if it resonates with you. I know that there's the new slogan I'll say in Hollywood, that's like with the Costume Design Guild, it's like naked without us. I'm going to push it a step further and say it's not that the characters are naked without the costume designers. It's that it's not the right character without the costume designer. Because you could have like an action figure of Harrison Ford as Indiana Jones, and if he's got on a Hawaiian print shirt and board shorts and flip-flops, but you're advertising it as an Indiana Jones character, you're like, no, it's not. He's not wearing the right suit, And so you guys, it's just a beautiful explanation of how the psychology of the clothing and how that propels and tells the story. I love it.
Yeah. And I live when we watch an actor like fine, they're like when the character comes on in the fit and suddenly, and and like the movement is different. Oh, their body, crazy. And it's beautiful to see, and I feel like we're empowering them in costume too.
Is there one moment in particular that sticks out to you that you're like, that was really cool to see them put on that and like see the
mean, there's so many, but
so many.
Two that stick out are really with Ted Fack, because I swear he goes, like his voice changes. Like he starts talking like Ted Fack from Ricky to Ted Fack. Yeah. And his mannerisms change as soon as he puts it on. Like how he holds himself, and carries himself. It's wild.
Yeah.
And I did think it happened with Jamie too. Like Donna, she's being in the room as we built Donna. So like, hold on, I'm gonna cry now.
like the care that Jamie Lee Curtis shows to her character and the respect she gives to the character and to the close and to be in that room with her as we find it. And it's not only fun, but it's so fulfilling because you're just like, this is her. Like, these are the clothes she can wear down to everything is so thoughtful. We're like, what is like just these little accessories of the gold earrings that were definitely from like a Sims or a Filey or like some old school department store, or whether it's the she shell belt. And then, doing the buttons a little, like making sure it's a button, because as we go through time, she gets a little bit more unraveled and you see it a little bit more. And continuing on the through lines of the seasons with her, when we see her outside of the restaurant and she's a little bit more subdued, she's really trying to stay sober. Her colors are a little bit more muted, a little bit more self-conscious, and like how we see her grow and change, but also stay Donna is just, it's great.
Yeah. I feel like that really brought life back into what we do. Because sometimes you do churn out a lot of work, and it's those moments that are like, okay, this is why we do this. And there's so much purpose. I mean, that woman cares about what's inside her purse. Like, no one will ever see that, but we know it's there.
Yeah.
And it matters.
Yeah.
Yeah. Oh, I love that. That is so great. Thank you for sharing that story about her. Both of you have had an incredible career of moving up the ladder within the costume department within films and television. Would either one of you want to speak into some of the lessons that you've learned on that journey through the different hats you've had to wear?
Yeah, I think one, I started out as an intern before I was a PA on a movie called What Maisie Knew, the cast of Benedict Stacy the Tat, and just watch your designer who you're working for be a sponge, take it in of what they're not making decisions frivolously, and you can ask questions, and just there are so many lessons in that, and what they gravitate towards what they don't, or what, and listening to them and how the actor's responding. And I think that those lessons, things that I've learned from her, like Frank Fleming, are that when I was a coordinator and a PA and then an ACD, like those things carry with me to this day.
Wow. Yeah, that's good.
So I did start this as a production assistant, entry level, right out of college. So I definitely was like so hungry for it, and felt, I never felt like I was owed anything. I was totally willing to put in the time. And like Courtney said, I just absorbed everything from every human that was ever part of my journey, whether you were learning the good, the bad, the ugly. You can take something from it, even if it's what not to do, and, what you don't want to do in your department when it becomes your department. And I just think there's a little bit that you can take from everyone. I do think working every position within the department is so important, so that you have grace for those, when you are at the top, when you have more grace for people when things fall through the cracks, so you can approach and understand like why things are happening or why they need the things they're asking for. So I do think that's important.
That's great. Well, thank you both. That's great. Okay, I have a few deep dive questions. My first one? What is something you really like about yourself?
I'll go first. I think I have mine. I think what I really like about myself is the ability to pivot when things change. And I think it took a lot of time for me to grow into that. I'm a very anxious person, and being able to let things slide off me and not drown in a glass of water, like my grandpa likes to say, has been so huge for me. And it's taken so much time to realize that everything is always going to work out in life and in this industry. So I think I'm growing to like that about myself a lot.
That's great. I like that. That's a good challenge.
I think what I like about myself is being able to connect with other people. And I think I love connecting with people with what makes them happy or what little specific things they're interested in, and like what people tend to like be obsessed with in their own lives, because it also, one, like you can always find something to relate to, but it's also fun to hear someone talk about their own passions and what brings them joy or comfort, or when it comes to fitting, when it comes to actors and when it comes to working with my crew, having that collaborative nature is really fulfilling. And it's so good to see people get excited about the clothes and about ideas.
Yeah.
And
That's great. Love it. Is there a tough lesson that you've had to learn, either on the bear or just in life in general? And it can be related to costumes or not.
I think this is both related to costumes, but also in your everyday life. Advocating for yourself and the people around you, I think, is really important. There were times where you don't speak up, and so you don't get what you need, and therefore the support isn't there. It makes your job tougher. It makes it tough for the people around you. And that's like, whether it can be a work thing, but it can also be a personal thing too. When you don't ask for help, you don't ask for what you need. I think that lesson is constantly being reinforced. Just like, okay, this is what you need to ask for. This is what you need to speak up about.
Yeah.
I think for me, the biggest lesson in this business has been every day I have to wear my armor to work, and realizing that not everybody has, the best interest for you. You're not going to get along with everybody. You're not going to meet eye to eye with people all the time. And really just being strong and staying true to yourself and your most authentic self, and, being collaborative, having a vision, standing true to who you are, but knowing that it's not always, going to be roses.
Yeah.
That's tough. I always thought, like, the critiques in college that you do and you get feedback, and I'm like, wow, or being in a group project and two people freaking suck. That doesn't end. And that, I feel like that was a tough lesson.
It's interesting how both of your answers are actually kind of connected by, if everybody likes you all the time, then you've got to be either not advocating for yourself or lying to somebody to tickle their ears, to make them, because I'm like, there's no way for all people to like you all the time. It's not possible, unless you're just feeding them the words that they want, or not speaking up and advocating for yourself, and you're just like a wallflower and that's it, So it's really interesting how both of those are very similar. It's like two sides of the same coin. At least in my opinion.
No, that's a good through line.
Yeah. Okay, so I have a few simple rapid fire questions. Is there a movie you can watch over and over again?
Yeah. Right now I'm going to say The Thin Man or Clueless, but there's so many.
I would say
those are so great. Those are two polar opposites.
It was Mean Girls for me.
Mean Girls, nice.
Holds up.
Yeah. Those looks are so iconic. In Mean Girls. Courtney, since you mentioned books earlier, is there a book that you suggest?
I will say, and some of them will carry me. It's by Giles Fidalaro. I'm probably butchering my friend's name. Published by Dorothy Books, which is a small publishing house. And it's just, any of their books are just really beautiful. But she had just written one 2 years ago, and I know it sounds like a plug, but they're like these little short stories. So I find myself turning the page, reading them from night to night, just to take it in, because it's beautifully written, and the characters are so vivid.
Nice. That's cool. And it's like little snippets, like you said, where you can do it when you're in a busy work job like yourself, instead of sitting down reading a 100-page chapter. Is there a favorite place that you guys have been to that you suggest others visit?
Well, we did do Copenhagen together twice for the bear, and I would go back
In a heartbeat every
just
year.
Every year if I could. I had such happy people, fashion forward, great food, great shopping.
Walkable, it's bikeable. You can just spend the day exploring. It's such a, I agree.
10 out of 10.
That's currently
Okay.
my pick as well. I was like, Copenhagen.
Everything about Copenhagen, yes.
That's so great. And then, apart from the bear, what's next for you? Or is it just the bear? Is that all consuming? That's for both of
We're
you.
on a job right now together.
Yes, we're
Are
on
you
a
allowed
job
to talk about it?
I think so.
I mean, there's press out
Yeah,
about
it's called it's called The Runarounds. It's gonna be an Amazon show about a band summer after high school and trying to make it, be professional musicians, and it's a coming of age, and it's summer and emotions are high and they're shenanigans.
I like it. Is it a movie or series?
It's gonna be a series.
Series. Okay.
Yes.
So you're working on that. But I did read that the bear is greenlit for a season 4.
Yes. So that is when we usually film, which is the winter.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
So we're gonna go back and forth.
Yep.
Yes.
So we'll
Wow.
do that next year.
Okay, that's so impressive, and how busy you stay. Well, thank you both so much for coming on the show today. I really appreciate it, and feel free to come back on for this series, the runarounds.
Keep an eye out. Yes.
Okay.
Yes. And then to be clear, it is Some of Them Will Carry Me by Jada Scudellaro. Ha! Jada, if I messed it up, I'm so sorry.
It's easy to do, so don't even worry about it. But thank you for looking that up. And I hope you guys have a really good day. Thank you.
Thanks for having us.
Thanks. Bye.
Thank you for listening to The Voice of Costume. Check out voiceofcostume.com to learn more, see upcoming guests, and be a part of our growing community.